Testing, testing. Good morning. Welcome to the Commission's administrative meeting for June 21st, 2023. We have a relatively packed agenda today, and it's going to be a more festive meeting than usual. We have some leftover balloons yesterday. Some of you in the audience were with us in Hughesville down at the Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative's headquarters to celebrate 30 years of supplier diversity. We had an excellent conference. So many of our utilities and public service companies participated in 2022. Collectively, $1.5 billion were spent with diverse suppliers, including minorities, women, veterans, and LGBT businesses. So I'd just like to thank particularly our staff, our host, Commissioner Linton, who has done a yeoman's work in moving this conference forward, and we voted yesterday at SMECO to begin the process of renaming the conference after the late former Commissioner Harold Williams in his honor. That will require a COMAR change, but the Commission will be undertaking that in the very near term. So there's a lot to be grateful for and a celebratory mood. Just want to also thank all of our staff who worked the event yesterday and brought the balloons to Baltimore. Yeah. A few more, Commissioner O'Donnell, if you'll indulge me a bit. Obviously, this commission has invested a lot of resources in federal funding, both the IRA and the IIJA. I was really happy to see that the fruits of those labors are beginning to take effect, with yesterday Baltimore Gas Electric being awarded one of the first bipartisan infrastructure law grants to build out cable and infrastructure broadband for the benefit of both electric power and for broadband in central Maryland. So that's something to be proud of. A few personnel announcements. We have a lot of personnel announcements today. First, I'd like to recognize the departure next week of Trevor Tomlinson. I don't know if Trevor is here. Is he here? No, he's not here. Trevor's been an advisor to the commissioners for the past several years. Before that, he was an intern in OGC. He has done tremendous work for us. He was our first chair prosecutor for some of the retail supply investigations. He's going to be moving to North Carolina to take a legal position there, and we only wish Trevor the best. We will miss him for sure. I have a promotion to announce. Kathy Fuston, many of you know, she's worked the legislative desk as well as assisted a number of commissioners over the years, including Commissioner Barvey and Commissioner Richard. She's done a tremendous amount of work in Annapolis, and going forward she will be the Deputy Director of both Legislative Affairs and Communications, assisting both Lisa Smith and Tori Leonard on those issues. We have a new arrival in Staff Counsel, Harrison Scherer. Harrison actually worked with us back in 2018. Harrison, are you here today? There he is. Harrison was one of our interns in 2018, and he's coming back to the Commission's Staff Counsel now. There he is. Haven't seen you in years, Harrison. Welcome back. He's an attorney, but he has an interest in climate change and environmental issues. Another Terp, University of Maryland, College Park. He went to law school at University of Baltimore. So he's going to be rounding out our Staff Counsel division. First time we've actually had a full deck in years. So we're very pleased to have him officially join us as permanent staff. So welcome Harrison. I'd like to now turn to Commissioner Linton for some remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to my colleagues and to all of you here today. As some of you may know, my term as a commissioner ended in July of last year, and I have been enjoying some time as a holdover commissioner, a period of which will end towards the end of this month, at some point around the end of this month. So this will be my last hearing as a commissioner and in the administrative perspective. So Thanks to the chairman for the opportunity to say a few comments here today. It's somewhat funny for me at least because I thought I would just pull out my comments from the last time I was leaving the commission, which has happened twice now in my career. So this is actually my third go around. So maybe third time's the charm. Who knows? Uh, I've enjoyed the job tremendously. I won't say it was the best job I ever had because I'm not retiring. So hopefully my next job will be even better, whatever that might be. Uh, I could spend some time thanking a lot of different people. Many of them I've done so personally and directly. For those of you who I don't get to see that often, you know that I've treasured our relationships and time that we've worked together. Unlike other folks, as you may know, I'm the second commissioner to have come to the commission here in Maryland from the technical staff. So there are a number of people that I've worked with over the years in the Consumer Affairs Division, formerly Office of External Relations, and of course in the technical staff in the Staff Counsel Division. So there's a lot of names I could throw out, some of whom have retired and moved on, some of whom are still around and will be here after I've gone. I've learned enough to know that it's not worth saying goodbye, because all you really do is just switch seats and take on different responsibilities. I've sat over there and over there when the chairs were a different color, and I had an opportunity now to sit up here as well. So I will tell you that the bench is not as high up in the air as it might appear to be from the front. Sitting over there, it always looked like it was standing height at least, but when you're over here, it almost seems kind of level, which I think it's been a reassuring thing for me over the years to realize that at the end of the day, we're all trying to figure out the right way to do the right thing to resolve any problem that's presented to us. And as a commission, I oftentimes felt as a commissioner that there was always a little bit less that I knew, because as the technical staff, there was so many details and alternatives that I got to look at and then ignore, or decide it wasn't the right answer. And as a commissioner, you don't always get to hear about all that. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing a little more than I used to, a little more than I have over the last couple of years. But I'm proud of the work we've done here at this agency over the last, for me, 6 years. 3 of which, as we know, was complicated through moving through a very difficult time period for all of us with the pandemic. But I think we've resolved that period and came through it very well and better for it. So I would generally thank our technical staff. I would thank those of you in the industry that I've worked with for many years, and even those of you who I've met more recently. Obviously, my family, they're not here today, but my family's always been very supportive and are happy to know that I'm not looking at this as a negative, because it's not. When I took the job, I knew that, as every commissioner knows, that there is an end to it. It's termed on purpose. It's not a career position. In Maryland, we've been somewhat spoiled in the sense that we've had some who've lasted for many more than one term. And so it seems like, oh, you should be there for years and years, but that's not the way it works. The changeover is good. I'm confident in the institution and the agency itself. I think that there are many challenges that we have facing us as a commission and as a state, and I'm confident not in the people, but in the industry itself and in the agency itself, because I know that the structure we have here works, and the diversity and uniqueness of all of us that come together to work together, to throw our different ideas together, figure out the answer in the best ways that work. I'll tell you quickly the reason why I feel that way. Back in, I guess about 5 years ago, not 5 years, about 10 years ago, that's all kind of run together after a while. But about 10 years ago, when I was working in the Consumer Affairs Division, I got a call from a consumer advocate It was around December 17th or 18th, about a week or so before the holiday season really started in earnest. And she was telling me that a utility company had a consumer's home, was at a consumer's house and was attempting to deny service to the customer. And I came to find out that the consumer did not have an account. So they effectively moved in and was using the service. The reason the advocate was involved is because the consumer had stage 4 cancer and a home with 6 children. And of course, the husband and the wife were there together. The wife was the one who was sick. So the utility company was in the right at the time for what they were doing. There wasn't anything illegal about the need to deny service or to disconnect service at a property where there's no customer of record there. But there's obviously a different challenge there when you do something like that on a Friday afternoon when it's 15 degrees outside and there's a family living there. So I was able to contact the utility company and tell them that they weren't doing anything incorrect, but it wasn't right. And so the utility company, in my opinion, made the right choice, did not deny the service, reached out to the consumer and attempted to work out an arrangement where the power could remain. So that consumer never contacted us. I never heard their name again. They never heard my name again. But the kind of work that happens in that kind of moment is what an agency like this does all the time. And so to our technical staff, when I say I'm confident in the institution, that's what I mean. That there's a need and there are people in place that can do the work and achieve the challenges and overcome the challenges that are in front of us. And at the end of the day, keep the lights on and keep it safe for everyone. And so I look forward to seeing that happen more and more and continue to happen here in Maryland and elsewhere. And I'll be watching from afar, but probably not too far, because like I said, I'm not retiring. I will be around, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next. So I'll point out to my colleagues, thank you for your time and your commitment, not just to Maryland, but your willingness to sometimes read my long emails and my arguments, which might seem to be a little off from what everybody thought we were talking about. And hopefully we'll see each other again in the next circle. So it's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. It has been my honor to serve with you over these past 5 years. You've been a thought leader. I've always been impressed with your depth of knowledge. In fact, you wrote some of the COMAR on our desk here. Could cite the Public Utilities articles, chapter and verse. And you were always calm. Not all of us were always calm on the bench. Because Mike's not here, and he's on jury duty today, by the way, and he sends his best wishes. But there's that saying, still waters run deep, and I think that applies to you. Reading your emails sometimes, I just mentioned, I need to go home and get a glass of wine and sit down because it's going to take a while. But you're always thoughtful. Your demeanor and knowledge base will be sorely missed by this commission. Thank you. Colleagues.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So one day about maybe 5-6 years ago, I don't know when it was, whenever Commissioner Linton was considering applying first time for appointment, he came into my office and knocked on my door and said, "Can I talk to you?" And I was like, "Sure, I got an open door policy, come on in." And Obie came in and in his kind of Mayberry RFD, aw shucks kind of mannerism, Obie said, "I'm thinking about applying to become a commissioner. What do you think?" I thought, that's great. That's great. I said, I don't have a great deal of knowledge about you, but that's great. I encourage you. Proceed. Get it. Go for it. Why not? you got experience here at the commission. You know some things, and he did. What I didn't know when I was saying that was the depth of this man's intellect and the depth of his knowledge of regulatory construct and the depth of his knowledge of the COMARs and the law and case law. And he's been very instructive in helping us with precedent and why decisions were made and why things happened 15 years ago. And very, very helpful. And Obi is just a very, very thoughtful, unassuming, as the chairman said, very deep thinking person. And I've become richer because of my experience with Obi and my knowledge of him. And I will count him as a lifelong friend. And it's fun to watch him operate down in front of the legislature. Commissioner Barve, there were some people down there, apparently Obi had wrapped around his finger that I didn't know about, but he did. He was a rock star down there among certain quarters. So we're going to miss him. But as Obi said, these are transient positions. They're not permanent positions. They're never intended to be permanent positions. And there's a reason for that. But I'd like to just wish my good friend and his family fair wind and following seas, and till we see you again, I'm sure we'll be nearby. Thank you, Obi.
All I have to say, Commissioner Linton, is that I regret that I didn't get to work with you longer, but I look forward to seeing you and talking with you as the weeks and years go by. But thank you, and especially thank you for the wonderful work you did with respect to the MOU. I think everyone has to be very impressed with your accomplishment and passion there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, I'm not sure if I could top that. When I arrived here in the summer of 2018, I wasn't exactly sure what I was getting myself into. My first hearing was a relatively short one. David Bielgemans was at the table at the time. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was very well scripted at the time. I didn't bring much to the commission when I started, but I brought two simple rules for the staff. Be nice to each other and communicate effectively. And I like to think that those two rules help to foster innovation and the advancement of regulation for the benefit of Marylanders, for the benefit of our public service companies that we regulate. And the challenges have been many over the years. Every year we have new, complex, aggressive legislative mandates. We weathered a pandemic that none of us have ever seen, but we transitioned. The staff was flexible. We adapted. Within 2 weeks of shutting down the agency on March 16, 2020, we were up by the end of the month. Resumed our admin meetings entirely virtually, and this commission was open for business. And we've accomplished all of that on the backs of the staff. And so much has occurred over the past 5 years. It's hard to count everything that we've done, the hundreds and hundreds of hearings, hundreds of orders that have been issued. 5 years ago, electric vehicles were a novelty, I think, for most. And now 4 out of 5 of us on the bench drive electric. I think Tony still drives a steam shovel to work, but that's okay.
The lawnmower.
But we now find ourselves as a leader on the East Coast. We're on the leading edge of developing the EV charging network. And that was before the prospect of federal funding was even on the horizon. I'm proud of those accomplishments and of our staff and of our partner utilities. Retail supply competition. That's been another big issue that's been using a tremendous amount of our resources. It's been the law of the state for over 20 years now to embrace competition. And we're doing our best to make sure it succeeds. But at the same time, we've invested resources to weed out deceptive market practices, slick marketing. Unfortunately, today, there's still too many of our several hundred licensees that are trading in bad practices and trying to entice unassuming customers into signing up for their product. But with the help of our prosecutors, staff counsel, OGC, I mentioned Trevor earlier, as well as the ladies of the Consumer Affairs Division and the Compliance and Enforcement Unit, they are tenacious. They track every single complaint. We have a dossier on most of the offending suppliers in the state. And by weeding them out, we will make retail supply competition successful eventually. When I arrived in 2018, Maryland was ranked worst, tied for worst with another PSC in terms of the regulatory environment. But collectively, we've been able to change that dramatically over the past 5 years by advancing sensible regulations, embracing innovation, embracing new rate-making practices that align the benefits of utility shareholders or members with those of their customers. And I'm very happy that our utilities have been able to operate safely, reliably, top decile for some of them, and I won't say most importantly, but importantly, affordable for most customers in the state. And that didn't happen by chance. It happened because of the hard work of the commission staff, 160 hardworking professional employees, as well as my colleagues on the bench here today, nationally recognized leaders, Commissioner O'Donnell, Chairman of Nuclear Issues and Nuclear Waste Disposal, which is seeing a renaissance right now. These issues will be more important than ever. Commissioner Linton, Chairman of the very well-respected Consumers and the Public Interest Committee. Obi, you've been a national voice on supplier diversity. Your voice will be missed. And I know Kumar has a lot on his plate right now, but I have no doubt he will quickly assume the mantle of some issues that are near and dear to him as well. But we've gained this national status, this respect, by producing consistent, well-reasoned, thoughtful decisions that balance the equities of all the parties, while respecting this blue book and the red book on our desk. Because at the end of the day, we're here to uphold the public interest. And because of the hard work of the staff here, I believe that mission has been accomplished and will be accomplished in the years ahead. I just can't emphasize enough the respect that I have for this staff. And this is coming from somebody who's been working around a lot of regulatory staffs over the past 25 years. So let me close by offering my thanks to so many staff who I have great affection for. Let me begin by recognizing my advisors, and please forgive me if I forget some of the names. There are many, both past and present. My personal legal advisor, Joey Chen, Morris, Amanda, Lisa, Molly, more recently Benjamin, Trevor, Brett, Jared. They make the commissioners ready and able to make these really important decisions that we make at the AMs through our orders. Without the advisors, I'm not sure where we would be. Thank you to them. I'd like to thank my senior management team, committed individuals who are not paid nearly what they're worth. Andrew, you've been a phenomenal chief of staff. Chuck, Tony, Matt, Bob, Miles, Stephanie, Tori, make all of these offices seamlessly work. I know I've dragged you into the office for many years. I think we met at 8 a.m. once every week on a Tuesday. And throughout COVID, start early, have those senior staff meetings, but it kept the agency running seamlessly. Everybody knew what everybody else was doing, which is important to adhere to that second rule of good communication. My colleagues on the bench, including Commissioner Bubar and Commissioner Herman, two very good friends, Commissioner Barve. I've enjoyed our contacts over the past 4 to 6 weeks as well. We've generally we've had our disagreements. I've been short, and for that I apologize over the years. But in most cases, we reached a reasoned compromise, and I think that was important. And if I could recall, I think I've only was outvoted once, and I only had to write one dissent in this time, and I think that's been the case for most of us. And there's just so many other folks that don't attend these meetings. The folks in transportation out there worked throughout COVID. We had the luxury of staying at home. They were in the field. Our engineers, they didn't get to stay home. Folks in IT, fiscal, dockets, Vince Tyler, our logistics, he's our super here. Our maintenance man, parking, IT. When our systems exploded 3 weeks ago and our servers meltdown and we had to shut down for 3 days, all those folks got together. We found a server somewhere and back in operation a short day later. I want to thank our partner agencies, secretaries, administrators, past and present, that participate day and night in some of these hotly contested cases, including MEA, MDE, PPRP, DHCD, OHEP, and many others. I mentioned David in the front row here. Just one example of the many of the PSC bar. Many of you are here today. I've been nothing but impressed since day one in terms of your advocacy, your representation of your clients, your adherence to the rule of law. And that goes as well to the attorneys, the line attorneys of OPC, dedicated professionals defending the positions of residential ratepayers in the state. In closing, I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank Governor Hogan and his team for the confidence they placed in me over the years. And finally, lovely Loretta Schofield, my personal assistant, fixes my tie every morning and makes sure I get to work on time. Loretta, thank you she's not here today, but thank you for everything you've done. So thank you for allowing me to speak. We do have a pretty heavy docket this morning. So we have meeting minutes to approve from June the 7th, 2023. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I give a rebuttal.
The meeting minutes are approved. Rebuttal or sir rebuttal?
Mr. Chairman thinks he can get away.
Brief rebuttal, Commissioner O'Donnell.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be remiss if I didn't say a couple things. One is, you have held the people's interest in this commission in good stead. For 5 years, you've been a great leader. No type of enterprise like this, when you have 5 independent operators who can think and vote their will and their conscience, come without some friction sometimes, but it's de minimis. It's de minimis here. It really has been. It's not partisan here. It never has been. And you're a big part of that. And the citizens benefit from that because the public interest is served well. Now, when Governor Hogan appointed me, Mr. Chairman, the Baltimore Sun said, why would you appoint O'Donnell? He's not a lawyer. He's just a former legislator. And Governor Hogan very wisely said, that's exactly why I appointed him. He's not a lawyer. He brings something else. And I think that that's what makes this thing click. But I got to tell you, it's my opinion that you need a lawyer to be a chairman, a good, solid person who has a good innate sense of the rules of procedure and the rules of conduct and jurisprudence and temperament that some of us may not have. And Jason, you've had that, and you've really done a good job here. And, you know, there's a lot of backslapping going on here right now, but it's appropriate because we don't get to do that. It's the first time maybe in 5 years that we get to do that, and probably the last time. You've tried to make it fun, and you have. When Governor Hogan appointed me, he also said, you're going to be the representative that represents some of the geographic diversity on the commission, because we really didn't have that for a long time. And now we got someone from the Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative. We've had them before, but it had been a while. And Jason and my colleagues all, to be honest, but the chairman have certainly been respective and always looking out for that rural demographic, that rural perspective to make sure that we were okay. He would often send me a text, yeah, so you got a new charger down there in Solomon, or, you know, whatever, wherever it was. Good leader for the state. Didn't know him before he came here, but between his background and all the other quantities that he possesses to lead an agency of such nature, I'm thankful I got to know him, and I will also consider him a lifelong friend. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, we go back a little further than a few weeks. Many years ago, in my capacity as the chairman of the Environment and Transportation Committee, I pulled together a very large discussion group of stakeholders to discuss the issues associated with using rural land potentially for industrial solar generation. And many people came, the Farm Bureau, folks from land preservation, industry individuals, and you were there, and I believe you brought Joey with you, and I think somebody else might have come as well. But I found your insights to be very, very useful for me and for my committee. And I found that when I did contact you, you got back to me very, very quickly, and you were a great help to me, my committee, and the House of Delegates. And so I want to appreciate you for that, and I hopefully will be able to call upon your wise advice in the future as well. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Kumar.
So the first time I got the chance to meet Jason, he may not remember this, but it was actually online, electronic, on LinkedIn. I didn't have an account, and I saw him on there. I heard he got appointed, and I said, well, I might as well reach out to him and see, who he is, because I don't know him. I never met him. And I logged on, and I sent him a friend request. So I kept thinking about the old, what was the name of that old social network? It was MySpace. And everybody had the same first friend from MySpace. And so he was my first friend on LinkedIn. And it was always funny to me that, I've been on the internet and interacted with lots of people there, and I'd never even been on that website before. And I said, let me reach out to him and get this and say hello. And we had a chance to talk then, and we went out and grabbed a bite to eat. And for the first time, we just kind of interacted about what was his plans for the commission. And I didn't tell him at the time, but the first thing I was struck by is that he brought something to the commission that we hadn't had in a while, and that was more of a global or national approach to how Maryland could continue to operate. And at a time when we think a lot about how Maryland could be a leader in so many different initiatives. I found that to be a very important element, an important skill set. And so he's continued to carry it on. As many of you know, he was the founding joint chair for the Federal State Task Force with Chairman Dutrell from Pennsylvania. And that's done some remarkable work with FERC, and I believe that work will continue. So not only did you get a chance to start it, but you get a chance to see it continue on. And that's really one of the most important components of a job like this one, is to know that there's only going to be at any one time 4 or 5 of us. But you go through the hallway and you can see many who came before us, and you know that there'll be others that'll come afterwards. And knowing that the bricks you've placed on the wall will continue to make it stronger is a pretty good feeling. It makes it easier to have these hearings and meetings and having the back and forth wrestling as we normally would on different issues that are important to the state. Jason's kept the trains running here, and I've had a chance to see a number of commissioners operate, and there have been some times when we've had some chairmen who were, shall we say, a little more difficult to deal with, both from across the table, across the bench, and on this side of the bench. And keeping the trains running is not always easy. There's oftentimes a lot of people who would like to sometimes see them not running for different reasons. But you've been able to keep us running smoothly. We've gained a great amount of respect nationally and even internationally. And those are things that are all great for the citizens of Maryland. And so to say that your leadership here will be missed is really a bit of an understatement, because there's a lot of national challenges that are heading this way, and your voice, if not in Maryland, we're going to need it somewhere, even if it's not here. So everybody else may not understand that, but as someone who's been around long enough, I certainly can see it. So I'm sincerely hoping that no other industry swoops you up, but that you stick with energy and continue to rely on the expertise that you've gained over the years for the greater benefit of the citizens of Maryland. And even if it turns out that another state somewhere else grabs you, that's still going to be beneficial for us here as well. So congratulations on a successful tenure as chairman of the Maryland Public Service Commission.
Thank you, Obi. I appreciate those comments. Thank you very much. Maryland will always be home. Thank you. Mr. Secretary, the consent agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, there are 6 items on today's consent agenda. Item number 1 is application from AEC Energy LLC for a license to supply electricity. Item number 2 is a notice from Talon Energy Marketing LLC of material change of the emergence from bankruptcy. Item number 3 is a request from Diamond Energy East LLC to cancel its electric supplier license. Item number 4 is a request from Fiberlight LLC to restate and amend its existing long-term financing arrangements. Item number 5 consists of revised tariff pages from Metropolitan Telecommunications of Maryland, Inc., DBA MetTel. And finally, item number 6 is an application from Catalent Maryland, Inc. for approval to construct a generation station.
Thank you. Seeing no questions on these 6 consent agenda items, I would move with respect to item number 1 that we grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland, limited to broker services for the customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff, and direct the company to file notice with the Commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in its application. With respect to item number 2, I move that we note the filing. With respect to item number 3, I move that we approve the cancellation request. With respect to item number 4, I move that we note the new financing. With respect to item number 5, I move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of July the 1st, 2023. And with respect to item number 6, I move that we approved the application. The vote begins with Commissioner Barvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motions are approved. Mr. Secretary, the administrative agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, item number 7 consists of revised tariff pages from Verizon Maryland LLC.
Commissioner Barbe.
I just need to run and grab something. I'll be back.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll take a brief recess. Make sure you don't get strangled by the balloons. Yeah. Yeah. We're in recess until Commissioner Barbe comes back in a moment. All right, we're back on the record. Good morning, Mr. Manka.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Alden Manka on behalf of staff. On June 1st, 2023, Verizon Maryland LLC filed revised tariff pages of its access service tariff to bring the company into compliance with the Federal Communications Commission report and order in WC docket number 18156, FCC release number 20-143, adopted October 9th, 2020. This order was designed to decrease abuse of the toll-free calling system by lowering or eliminating the rates related to toll-free calling. To comply with this order, Verizon is proposing to reduce its 800 database query rate from $0.002224 to $0.00200, local switching rate from $0.001203 to $0, shared trunk port rate from $0.00844 to $0, and transport facility from $0.000002 to $0. Originally, Verizon also proposed a tariff language change related to its dedicated trunk port per trunk rate. However, on June 14, 2023, Verizon submitted an amendment to its tariff changes to remove this language change and revert the proposed tariff language to how it originally was. Staff recommends the Commission accept the revised tariff with the amendment for filing with an effective date of July 1st, 2023. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Manka. Mr. Davis. Mr. Smith, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Doug Smith, Vice President, State Government Affairs for Verizon. Before I speak to this filing, I did want to wish both Commissioner Linton and Chairman Stanek all the best. Everybody at Verizon appreciated your leadership and thoughtful insights on all the issues that came before you over the years. So I know I speak for myself and all of Verizon, as well as my utility peers, that you will be sorely missed. We appreciate your time. Thank you. Regarding this filing, Verizon agrees with staff's summary of our filing and supports their recommendation for approval. I would like to add that this is a very complex issue in telecommunications services, and I'd like to further explain what this filing really does, if I could. 8YY is the 800 and 888 toll-free services that we're all familiar with. In that transmission of those calls, there's originating and terminating activity that occurs between carriers. So we will originate the call, and another carrier may terminate that call. When those originating and terminating actions occur, fees are incurred that are exchanged between the carriers, inter-carrier compensation. It's extremely complex. Those charges that are assessed today are part of a billing system that has seen and incurred some mischief. For example, robocalls can come pouring in, and each time a robocall comes in, they're picking up originating and terminating traffic fees. So it's a money grab. There's also a situation where some carriers will use an indirect route of their traffic, picking up those originating and terminating fees all along the way, much like taking a cab to the airport and he takes the long way and bills you for it. Same exact scenario. The FCC recognized this. They issued an order, and in that order they asked for all those rates to drop to zero. So there's no more compensation between the carriers. what they do is ask us to do a bill and keep policy. Bill and keep means we just bill the end user customer that has the 800 or 888 service. So the carriers are now clear. The FCC order required the rates on the interstate level to go to zero. This filing is our compliance at the intrastate level to make those rates zero as well. So this is basically an FCC compliance order. And with that, I kindly ask for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Seeing no questions, I would move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of July the 1st, 2023. The vote begins with Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, item number 8 consists of revised tariff pages from Armstrong Telephone Company.
Thank you. Do we have a representative from Armstrong here today? No. Mr. Manka.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Alden Manka on behalf of staff. On May 23, 2023, Armstrong Telephone Company, Maryland, filed revised tariff pages of its PSC number 4 tariff to bring its originating interstate switched access rates for toll-free traffic into compliance with the Federal Communications Commission report and order in WC docket number 18156, FCC release number 20143, adopted October 9, 2020, as well as changes to its tandem-related intrastate switched access rate for other traffic to match upcoming NECA tariff changes. Again, this FCC order was designed to decrease abuse of the toll-free calling system by lowering or eliminating those related rates. To comply with this order, Armstrong is proposing to decrease its toll-free local switching rates from $0.011996 to $0, its toll-free DA information surcharge rate from $0.0264 to $0, and its 800 database query per query rate from $0.002224 to $0.0002. NECA is the National Exchange Carrier Association, which was created in 1984 by the FCC to handle interconnection issues of local telephone networks and long-distance carriers. The members follow NECA tariff rates, which are approved by the FCC. NECA submitted tariff changes which were approved to the FCC on May 18, 2023, which is the reason for these Armstrong NECA changes, as they are a member of NECA. To match these upcoming NECA tariff changes, Armstrong is proposing to increase its local switching rate from $0.024297 to $0.024400, its DA information surcharge per 100 from $0.0535 to $0.0537, its tandem switching transport facility rate from $0.000203 to $0.000204, and its tandem switching termination rate from $0.001059 to $0.001063. Staff recommends the Commission accept the revised tariff for filing with an effective date of July 1st, 2023. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Manka. Do we know where Armstrong is today?
I do not.
Okay, they should be here. Questions? Seeing none, I would move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of July 1st, 2023. The vote begins with Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 9 is an operational deadline extension request from Adamstown Solar, LLC.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Good morning. Happy Solstice Day. Michael Dean on behalf of staff. Item 9 is a filing by Adamstown Solar, LLC, requesting a change to the deadline to commence operations at the Adamstown Community Solar Project located in Frederick County from February 11, 2024 to February 11, 2025. As authorized under Public Utilities Section 7-306.2, the Commission authorized a community solar energy pilot program to allow subscribers to have an interest in local solar facilities. Under COMAR 20.620304C1, a community solar project that fails to commence operations within 24 months of submission of its application to maintain its position in the local electric company's pilot program queue must make an additional $50 per kilowatt deposit. A project that fails to commence operations within 36 months must be removed from the electric company's pilot program. Q under Comar 2062-0304C2. Under Comar 2062-0104, the Commission may waive a regulation in this subtitle for good cause shown. In February 2021, Potomac Edison, the local electric company, granted a conditional approval of the interconnection, and the project was accepted into the community solar program on February 11, 2021. The program approval resulted in a 24-month operational deadline from that date. In its filing, Adamstown asserts that it has invested significant capital into the project and has made good faith efforts to develop this project in the most expeditious way. The filing notes that several delays have occurred in the construction of the project due to permitting and the procurement of equipment. As a result, in January 2023, it paid the mandatory $50 per kilowatt deposit under Comar 2062-0304C, which resulted in a total deposit of $100,000 to receive a 12-month extension of the original deadline. This resulted in the 36-month operational deadline of February 11, 2024. Adamstown asserts that there is good cause under Comar 2062-0104 for the Commission to grant the waiver of Comar 2062-0304 and change the operational deadline to February 11, 2025. Staff has reviewed the filing and agrees that there is good cause for the Commission to grant the request by Adamstown. Staff recommends that the Commission grant the waiver requested by Adamstown and change the existing February 11, 2024 operational deadline to commence operations at the Adamstown Community Solar Project by 1 year to February 11, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Dean, and happy solstice. Mr. Beaglemans, good morning.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. David Beaglemans on behalf of Adamstown Solar. I'm also joined today by Mr. Brian Fitzpatrick from Nexamp, the developer of the project. Before I start, I would like to echo the previous statements. I can tell you personally, it's been an honor to appear before both Chairman Stanek and Commissioner Linton. I think I've grown a lot appearing before this version of the commission, trying to predict the questions you may ask about all these waiver requests. So I'm sure both of you will do interesting things in the industry, and I look forward to seeing that on LinkedIn. I hope I get to work with you at some point in the future. So moving to this request, as is typical, I have nothing to add to staff's buck sheet, but we're here to answer any questions, and appreciate your consideration this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Beaglemans. Do we have any questions? Commissioner O'Donnell, then Commissioner Barvey.
Well, Mr. Bugelman's, talk to me a little bit more about the permitting delays that are cited in the buck sheet.
Sure. Would you like to cover that, Brian?
Sure. I would say that the permitting delays are primarily due to just due course of what's required in that county, Frederick County. There's a lot of hoops to jump through for when you're permitting a project of this size. Also to be in regulation with state regulation. So we can only submit those as soon as we have certain things in front of that. It's a sequence, and we've been in lockstep with that sequence to make sure that we were pushing ahead on that schedule as quickly as possible. I will say that the county has acted very well in response to our submission, but there are certain things between the county and the state that simply take time to get through those processes that are out of our control.
Well, weren't you able to anticipate that, though, when you bid and received this capacity in this program? Weren't you able to anticipate that and build that in, factor that in? Or did you just say, yes, we can make the deadline, the operational deadline, and then we'll worry about getting Mr. Bugelmans to exercise his innate abilities to get any delay he wants approved through this commission to our state program that's not being implemented?
No, I wouldn't say we went into that assuming we were going to get any extension. The 24-month deadline is a fairly tight deadline to meet that we've met in the past through other projects that we have in the state. And so, we go into this with the best intentions, and There were wetlands on the property that we had to navigate. There were other concerns around things that have popped up. And then keep in mind that we also had COVID to get through, which added some delays as well. And so there are things that have popped up through the course of this, but we didn't go into this assuming that we were going to miss the deadline. It's always been our intention to meet that 24-month deadline. And then as soon as we knew we were not going to do that, we applied for the additional 12 months and paid that deposit for that as well. So,
And
it's
you're
always-
back again.
Pardon me?
And you're back again.
We've done everything we could do. There are certain delays that happen beyond permitting.
Will you be back again?
No, sir. Not after today.
Is that right, Mr. Buglemans? You won't be back again. You'd rather cancel this project than request a further delay.
Well, I can tell you, the extension we've requested to February 11th, 2025, we believe that's achievable. So, again, the intent is to not come back here again. We've tried to structure this in a way to provide enough time to be able to finish this project and not come before this commission with another waiver request.
Mr. Buglemans, this is for you. You understand, every time you request a delay from this commission in this program, you're stifling the implementation of state public policy as passed by the legislature to implement this program. And very little of it's getting implemented, in large part due to the continuous stream of extensions that I've predicted for years, and they continue to come. Why do you think that that's a good way to implement state policy? Because you seem to be, you can point to PJM, you can point to local government, you can point to supply chain issues and lemonade stands run by little girls that cost $5 a cup of lemonade, but it doesn't make sense why one practitioner corners the market on stifling state policy. How do you justify this?
Well, I think it's a fair question, Commissioner. I've done a lot of these requests. I can tell you I've never had someone come to me and say, I need this extension. We weren't planning on meeting these deadlines. I mean, these are, and that's really the standard the commission has set out. I mean, we have to show in our letter that the project has advanced as much as possible. And with this particular request, we've provided a complete project scheduling Gantt chart and a letter from the project's engineer that shows everything that's been done. So I would say, Your Honor, that I think the process does work and there is accountability, because I have to come before you and explain, with the project like we've done today, what the project has done. And if a project had entered the queue and hadn't done anything and there is an issue, I don't think the commission would grant the request. I think the deadlines do work in terms of creating an incentive to build these projects. And there's also just simply a financial incentive for these developers to finish these projects, because until these are operational, they're not generating any income. So I think the incentives are aligned, and that's the best I can provide to you, Your Honor.
Well, I have a theory that if you start making enforcement an important part of these decisions, you'll get a fire lit under your clients' solar systems, and they'll get moving. But until then, we're going to continue to hand these out rubber stamp style, and it's delaying state policy. And you still don't have a good answer as to why you get to delay state policy, other than we asked you permission and you say it's okay. It's not okay. And I'm trying to tell you that. I've been trying to tell you that for years. My hope is someday I will not be in the minority voting no, as I'm going to do today, and then we make an example out of one of these worthy programs to say, don't mess any more with these delays. We got state policy to implement. The former chairman of the House Environmental Matters Committee wants us to do that. It's part of why he's here. And yet you're stifling it, and then we get the finger pointed at us. And well, you approved it. You just said it. And that's what we get a lot of. And I kind of get tired of it. I'll be voting no, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Barbe.
Thank you. This is probably a newbie question, but I'll ask it anyway. Aside from Frederick County government, which you say has been pretty cooperative, I believe that's what you said, what other state agencies and entities are involved in all these permitting exercises?
That's a good question, Commissioner. So, well, with respect to this project, this is a 2 megawatt or smaller facility, so it is subject to local permitting requirements. In some cases, which I don't think apply here, the state would be involved, for instance, for like a wetlands permit, that kind of thing. But for a standard, typical project, it's all county, starting with zoning at the county level, and then some technical reviews, including stormwater, erosion sediment control, grading permit, site plan, which is basically the layout of the project. All those reviews are generally iterative, and they just take time with multiple revisions, which is often why you see this process drag out.
Okay, well, I think then I must have misunderstood your initial testimony. I was under the impression that Frederick County was moving in an expeditious fashion, and perhaps some state agency or some other entity was not moving quickly. MDE, for example, with respect to stormwater and is that an MDE process?
It's not MDE. MDE's delegated stormwater reviews for the most part to the local level.
Okay.
I think, and we were talking about this before this hearing. I think with Frederick County, the impression isn't that they're intentionally trying to slow down development. It just takes a long time to work through their process, and then you combine it with the other issues this project has faced. If you look at our filing, the first issue was interconnection. The project had to go back to the utility, and it took 18 months to resolve that. Then it moved on to permitting, and now there's a supply chain issue. So it's sort of the combination of all of those things. But it really isn't a state issue. I mean, we're before the commission because there's these deadlines under the community solar program for the queue position. But it's not MDE or the commission that's put the project in this position.
I'm curious, is there a lot of local community opposition to the project?
No.
No?
Nope.
Okay, thank you, that's it.
Thank you. I would move that we grant the company Adamstown Solar LLC, grant their request to change the existing February 11th, 2024 operational deadline to commence operations at its community solar project to February 11th, 2025. The vote begins with Commissioner Barbe.
Well, I'm going to start with a question. In the General Assembly, we have the option to explain our vote. Does that happen here?
All day long.
You got to vote first.
Okay, I'm going to vote in favor. However, I do want to say, for the record, that I have a lot of sympathy for what Commissioner O'Donnell said. So aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
No.
I vote aye. On a vote of 3-1, the motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 10 is a joint request from Arcadia Power Inc. and Standard Solar Inc. to qualify its Lakeview Venture dwellings as low-income subscribers under the Community Solar Pilot Program.
Thank you. Do we have a counsel for Arcadia and Standard with us today? Mr. Davis, do you know where they are?
I do not.
All right, thank you.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Hunter Davis on behalf of Staff Counsel. Before you is staff's recommendation regarding mail log number 301944, in which Arcadia Power and Standard Solar Inc. jointly seek to qualify its Lakeview Venture dwellings as low-income subscribers for purposes of the Community Solar Pilot Program. Lakeview Venture property is a collection of residential units with primarily low-income elderly tenants located in Bethesda County, or Bethesda, Montgomery County. The Lakeview Venture is subject to a regulatory agreement with the Housing Opportunity Commission of Montgomery County and is a part of the Department of Housing and Urban Development Section 8 project-based voucher program. The regulatory agreement with Montgomery County provides the maximum income for eligible tenants, which is less than 80% of the Maryland median income as required to participate in the, to be qualified as a low and moderate income subscriber. The applicants adequately demonstrated that Lakeview Venture satisfies the requirements, and staff recommends that the property be qualified as an LMI subscriber for the Community Solar Pilot Program.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Arcadia is a big outfit. They should have somebody here today, but they don't. Do my questions have colleagues? Do my colleagues have questions?
Question. Yeah, that's all questionable, that's right. Just, what does this do to the other bins of, the other categories of capacity that have been doled out here, if this moves into the low income?
I'm unaware of that.
Yeah, we see a fair amount of shifting around, lots of low income, because it's lucrative once they can get enough qualified subscribers. But I'm just wondering what it does to the balance and equities of the original allotment scheme that was meted out. It doesn't have to be answered for this one, because, we serve low income, and that's good. It was part of the policy intention anyway, but I'm just curious what it does to the balance. Maybe in the future someone could school me up on what it does to the balance of the system.
I can tell you that based on the information provided by the company, the Lakeview Ventures are completely occupied, so all of the intended subscribers are currently residing within the properties.
Maybe someone could show me the change in numbers later. Thank you.
Seeing no additional questions, I would move that we grant the company's joint request and qualify its Lakeview Ventures dwellings as low-income or moderate-income subscriber for the purposes of the Community Solar Pilot Program. The vote begins with Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, items number 11 and 12 are revised purchase of receivables discount rate from Delmarva Power and Light Company and Potomac Electric Power Company.
Good morning, Mr. Justy.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Anson Justy on behalf of staff. On May 19th, 2023, Delmarva Power and Light Company, Delmarva, and Potomac Electric Power Company, PEPCO, filed revised purchase of receivables, POR, discount rates to be effective July 1st, 2023. POR rates are authorized under COMAR 20.53.05.06, allowing retail energy suppliers to use the electric utilities billing systems in exchange for discounting the supplier's portion of the customer's payment to defray the utilities expenses. For Delmarva, the POR rate is proposed to be reduced by 46% for residential customers from 4.0471% to 2.1803%. For all other customers, the POR rate is proposed to stay at zero. This rate reduction means Delmarva will pay suppliers a higher portion of the supply bill when it purchases receivables. The POR rate includes a mechanism for collecting write-off expenses. Typically, a POR rate would include recollection of the total write-off expenses incurred in the previous year. In years past, Delmarva has received authorization to amortize write-off expenses over multiple years to reduce what would otherwise be a very high POR rate. This recently occurred in last year's filing, where the company received authorization to amortize 2021 write-off expenses over 2 years. Therefore, this year's filing includes the second half of 2021 write-off expenses and all of the 2022 write-off expenses. At this point, Delmarva's prior year write-offs have been accounted for, and the next filing is anticipated to include only write-off expenses from 2023. For PEPCO, the POR rate is proposed to be increased by 43% for residential customers from 1.2577% to 1.7948%. For Type 1 customers, it is proposed to be reduced by 91% from 0.255%, 2555%, rather, 3 fives, to 0.0220%. For all other customers, it is proposed to remain at zero. The rate increase for residential customers means PEPCO will pay suppliers a lower portion of the supply bill when it purchases receivables, but it will pay a higher portion of the Type 1 customer purchase receivables. The change for residential customers is driven mainly by an increase in the company's under-recovery balance compared to last year. The change for Type 1 customers includes a change from under-recovery status last year to over-recovery status this year. In both cases, staff recommends the Commission accept the revised tariffs for filing, effective July 1st, 2023. Thank you. I'm available for questions.
Thank you. We'll turn to counsel for PHI.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Matthew Seegers, appearing for both PEPCO and Delmarva Power. I also have with me our subject matter expert in the event that there are any questions. We have nothing to add to staff's buck sheet. We appreciate staff's analysis. And before turning it back over to the Commission, Your Honor, I would note this is the last time I'm going to appear before Your Honor, Commissioner Linton. I just want you both to know that it's been a privilege, and I know I speak on behalf of everyone at PEPCO Holdings in wishing you both all the best in your next endeavors.
Thank you, Mr. Seegers. Do my colleagues have questions? Seeing none, I would move with respect to items number 11 and 12 that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of July 1st, 2023. The vote begins with Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 13 consists of revisions from Baltimore Gas and Electric Company to its electric vehicle charging rider.
Good morning, Mr. Delgado.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Eric Delgado on behalf of staff. On May 23rd, 2023, the Baltimore Gas and Electric Company filed tariff revisions, Rider 33, the electric vehicle charging rider. BGE's tariff revisions to Rider 33 reflect the incentives for fleet electrification proposed by the Exelon Utilities. The proposals were reviewed and revised by the Public Conference PC44 EV Fleet Subgroup, which the Commission tasked with providing potential solutions for addressing the barriers to fleet electrification. On September 14, 2022, the Commission approved the consensus fleet proposals by letter order. The approved proposals provide eligible commercial customers with incentives for fleet electrification, including fleet technical assessments, fleet make-ready incentives, and fleet L2 and DC fast charger rebates. BGE will offer commercial customers 50 technical assessments, 100 make-ready incentives, and 100 L2 and DC fast chargers rebates. BGE will provide 25% of the make-ready incentives and 25% of the L2 and DC fast charger rebates to commercial customers in historically disadvantaged communities. The incentives will be available to BGE commercial customers under Schedules G, GS, and L, operating at least 5 vehicles. Incentives are limited to 1 per location and 2 per customer. Staff has reviewed BGE's proposed tariff revisions to Rider 33 and finds the changes to be in accordance with the proposals approved by the Commission on September 14, 2022. Staff recommends the Commission accept the proposed tariff changes to Rider 33 effective June 21, 2023. Additionally, staff has reviewed OPC's comments and agrees with their recommendation of modifying the tariff language to clarify that the make-ready incentive only applies to the line side of the meter. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Delgado, for your buck sheet and your recommendation. Office of People's Counsel did file a letter with us yesterday with a relatively minor request. Ms. Woods, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Molly Woods for the Office of People's Counsel. As noted in our comments, OPC generally agrees with staff's assessment that BGE's proposed tariff revisions are in accordance with the proposals that were previously supported by the EV Work Group and approved by the Commission in September of 2022. In our comments, we did note, however, that the proposed language regarding make-ready work did not expressly state that the incentives are only applicable to improvements on the line side of the meter, as OPC believed was the consensus intention. As such, we recommended a brief change to the language in paragraph 5, adding the term line side to the language, the company shall offer no more than 75 incentives up to 90% of the costs to provide any necessary line side utility electric service upgrades. And that same language would be added to the following sentence regarding incentives for customers that install charging infrastructure in census tracts for historically disadvantaged communities.
Thank you. Yes, we have it before us. Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Woods?
Nope, I'll just add that I think as BGE will probably also state that both BGE and staff were in accordance with that proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Counsel for the utility.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joel Michelle on behalf of BGE. We thank staff and OPC for their collaboration on this matter, and as OPC represented, we have no issues with the suggested revisions.
Thank you, Mr. Michel. Do my colleagues have any questions? Seeing none, I would move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of June 21st, 2023, inclusive of the recommendation of OPC in its letter dated June 20th, 2023. The vote begins with Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 14 consists of tariff revisions from the Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, Inc.
Good morning again, Mr. Justy.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Anson Justy on behalf of staff. On December 1st, 2022, Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, SMECO, filed an application for authority to revise its rates and charges for electric service and for certain rate design changes. The Commission staff, Office of People's Counsel, and United States Department of the Navy participated in the proceedings. The parties agreed to settle the case in full and appeared before the Public Utilities Law Judge, the PULJ, on March 20th, 2023. The PULJ issued a proposed order number 90627, accepting the settlement on May 1st, 2023, which then became a final commission order on May 15th, 2023. The cooperative has filed tariff changes in this case to comply with the order. As part of the settlement, the company is closing 2 of its existing commercial service classes and assigning the customers to one of 4 new commercial classes. The expected energy use profile for customers served under the previous commercial classes changed significantly, and the new classes are intended to allow the cooperative to charge rates that more accurately reflect the costs imposed by the use pattern. A minority of the reassigned customers will now use a demand charge as part of their rate structure after previously not having a demand charge. While the cooperative received authority to charge the proposed rates beginning May 15, 2023, it only began charging the settled rates for residential customers and lighting customers. For the other classes, it implemented the rates on June 1, 2023 to allow additional time for system implementation and enhanced customer communication given the changes to its commercial service. Residential customers are estimated to receive an average monthly distribution bill only impact of 6.67%. The largest estimated impact estimated by staff that includes both the distribution and standard offer service energy charges is anticipated to be 19.58% for a subset of small commercial customers who are currently not paying a demand charge, though this impact can be variable depending on calculation inputs. The staff and cooperative anticipate continued discussion on the SOS issue in the context of the changed distribution rates. Staff recommends that the Commission accept the tariff revisions as filed, with the rates effective for all bills rendered on or after May 15th, 2023 for residential and lighting customers, and on or after June 1st, 2023 for all other customers. Thank you. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Justy. Thank you, Mr. Gregor. Mr. Krieger, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Damon Krieger on behalf of Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative. First of all, I'm glad to see that the balloons successfully made the trip from Hughesville to Baltimore. And they look very nice flying over you, Commissioner Linton. Maybe it's significant for your 30th birthday, not the 30th.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes.
And let me just say on behalf of SMECO, as others before me have said, thank you to Chairman Stanek and Commissioner Linton for your service. Congratulations on this milestone and best of luck in the future. With respect to the filing, first of all, let me say on the underlying rate case proceeding, SMECO sincerely appreciates all of the really great and effective collaboration among the parties, Commission staff, Maryland Office of People's Counsel, and the Department of the Navy, which also represented all the federal agencies with facilities in our service territory. Everyone worked very hard to understand respective party positions, ultimately arrive at a settlement agreement that was approved by the Public Utility Law Judge and then the Commission in Order 9627. I have no outbound remarks with respect to staff's comments other than to say thank you and express SMECO's alignment with the recommendation to accept our compliance filing and the tariff changes as filed, but I am available to address any questions that the Commission may have.
Thank you, Mr. Krieger. Do we have any questions for SMECO? Seeing none, I would move that for residential and lighting customers, accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date for all bills rendered on or after May 15, 2023, and for all other customers except the tariff revisions for filing effective for all bills rendered on or after June 1st, 2023. The vote begins with Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, item number 15 concerns the appeal of a civil penalty by Intelligent Resources LP.
Thank you. Do we have a representative or counsel for Intelligent? Mr. Davis, do you know?
I do not know.
All right. Let's move forward. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Hunter Davis. Before you is staff's recommendation regarding mail log number 302770, in which Intelligent Resources LP filed an appeal to the Commission's issuance of a civil penalty in the amount of $6,500. Intelligent is a retail supplier that was licensed to supply electricity in Maryland. Following staff's recommendation and by letter order issued on May 3rd, 2023, the Commission issued a civil penalty and suspended Intelligent's license until Intelligent could provide evidence that it is in good standing with the Departments of Assessments and Taxation, or SSTAT. Intelligent has yet to provide this evidence and, as of this morning, is still listed as forfeited on the SSTAT website. Staff recommended a $6,500 penalty to account for the company's size in business operations in Maryland. The amount is much less than the maximum amount authorized by PUA 13-201C3, and staff provided many opportunities to Intelligent to rectify this issue and communicated with the President, John Tate, on multiple instances prior to issuing its initial recommendation. Staff believes that the penalty amount is justified and should be upheld.
Thank you. The appellant has failed to appear. I would move that we uphold the civil penalty issued to Intelligent Resources LP for failure to comply with Public Utilities Article Section 7-507C3 and Code of Maryland Regulations, Title 20, Subtitle 51, Chapter 2, Regulation 2B, 5B. The vote begins with Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 16 is an application from the Potomac Edison Company for authorization to issue up to $150 million of long-term debt.
Mr. Delgado.
Morning,
Good morning.
again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Eric Delgado on behalf of staff. On April 21st, 2023, the Potomac Edison Company filed an application for authorization to issue long-term debt up to principal amount of $150 million. If approved, PE will use the debt securities to finance the discharge or lawful refunding of existing obligations over the next several years and make additional investments in its electric system to provide safe and reliable service to its Maryland customers. As of April 30th, 2023, PE had approximately $65 million of short-term borrowings under the First Energy Money Pool. Additionally, PE forecasts capital expenditures for the next 5 years to range between $127 million to $187 million annually, with its capital investment projects solely to maintain and enhance the reliability and safety of its electric distribution system. PE intends to use the debt authorization of $150 million beginning in the second half of 2023, with maturities between 12 months and 31 years. As of December 31st, 2022, PE's capital structure was 49.2% debt and 50.8% equity. As a result of the authorization, PE anticipates the capital structure to be 53.3% debt and 46.7% equity. Staff has reviewed PE's monthly capital structure over the last 3 years and finds the anticipated capital structure will not significantly differ from the monthly average in the previous 3 years. Staff has reviewed the company's application and finds it satisfied the provisions in COMAR 2007-0401 and COMAR 2007-0402. Staff recommends that the Commission grant the application and issue a final order in compliance with COMAR 2007-0402C, authorizing PE to issue up to $150 million of long-term debt. Thank you. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you for the buck sheet and recommendation. Good morning, Mr. Trout.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Jeffrey Trout, Council to Potomac Edison. Again, thank you for your service, Chairman Stanek, Commissioner Linton. I'll save my personal thanks and comments for another venue. With respect to the item before you, the company is fully in accord with staff's analysis. We agree with staff's recommendation. I am here to attempt to answer any of your questions, and I think I've anticipated the first one. So, go ahead.
From whom?
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say Commissioner O'Donnell is gonna ask me whether we're going to pay off any debt with more expensive debt. And the answer is no, we will not. And we specifically address that in the application.
With that, any additional questions? I haven't seen that before.
Just follow up. Very good. You're a savant. So how much capacity do you have right now that you could cover your capital program through without getting this long-term debt extended?
So all of our long-term borrowing capacity has been fully used. This would be creating a new window of capacity. With respect to short-term debt, as you heard, we're currently around 65 million. We could borrow more short-term, but borrowing short-term to finance long-term projects is definitely not what you want to do. You want to use short-term for short-term issues. If we got hit with a really bad storm, for example, we would need as much or more as we've currently got borrowed. So we want to get rid of that. We want to pay down the short-term debt and then have a good cushion for the long-term capital investments, which this application would give us.
Might there be a case made to use short-term debt extension temporarily while this high inflation rate and Fed's increasingly jacking the rate up persists, to get you through that, to get to maybe a lower rate?
Well, I thought you might ask that question as well, Commissioner. And we're in sort of an odd place as we stand here today in that our long-term borrowing is less expensive than our short-term borrowing rates. Whether when we get to the second half of this year, actually that's not that far away, is it? When we get to the fall, when we'd probably be starting to place this debt, I can't say whether that will still be true or not, but you can rest assured that we will look closely at interest rates before we actually commit to any expenditure of this long-term borrowing capacity.
All right, Mr. Trout, thank you both for your short-term and long-term prescient abilities. Thank you.
Seeing no additional questions, I would move that we grant the application. The vote begins with Commissioner Barve.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. We're going to take a brief recess. We'll come back at 11:40, 7 minutes. Parties for item 17 may take a seat at the table or the podium. right, we are back on the record for the final item, Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, item number 17 is a petition from the Potomac Edison Company for consent and approval to terminate its PURPA contract with AESWR Limited Partnership.
Thank you. We've already taken appearances from all the parties at the table. We last met on May 31st. We spent over an hour asking questions of the parties, and the parties felt that an additional 21 days to ask questions and better understand each other's positions were in order. Hopefully that time was used effectively. I see we have a few more documents that were filed, notably a letter from Office of People's Counsel, as well as Sierra Club, and a letter from the Women's Action Coalition. Who would like to begin by briefing the commissioners on what has happened over the past 3 weeks?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, before we do that, I would just like to add my comments to the people who have spoken about you and Commissioner Linton. Commissioner Linton, Obi, I'm one of the few people who are still around for and have been here through your entire 3 visits to the commission. It's been a pleasure working you, watching your progress, and working with you, and just seeing your dedication to the job. I really will be interested to see what you do next, and I look forward to encountering you in that position. Mr. Chairman, again, you've been here for your full term now, and again, staff truly appreciates your dedication to just seeing that we have the resources and the ability to do what we need, the way you've seen us through things like the pandemic, and just your dedication to the job. It's been, again, a great pleasure to be working with you, and I also look forward to seeing what you do in your next position.
Thank you, Mr. Spivak. Mr. Trout, should we turn it over to you? What's happened over the past 3 weeks?
Well, I know what hasn't happened. When we were here 3 weeks ago, the Office of People's Counsel said that they were going to file additional testimony from Mr. Chernick, and that would be coming very soon. And instead, yesterday afternoon, we got the letter that we received, and in the letter, the Office of People's Counsel reiterates its opposition to approving the termination agreement. I'm sorry to say that I regard that letter as being premised on, really very faulty analysis and assumptions. Their core point is that the plant's going to close by 2025, and so the customer shouldn't pay for anything past 2025. And I think that's an utterly baseless assumption to make, and Mr. Quinn is able to better speak to what his client's intentions and profitability and the like are. But there are a few things in OPC's letter that I am prepared to respond to if you want me to do that, or if you want to wait and hear from the other parties, I'm fine with that too.
Let's hold off a minute, Mr. Trout. Mr. Shebitz, when we last left off, the meeting, if you recall, concluded with an admonishment from Commissioner O'Donnell. Do you remember the admonishment?
I'm not sure I remember the exact admonishment.
It was an admonishment to OPC. I'm sorry if I'm stealing your thunder, Commissioner O'Donnell.
No, it just makes sense that why they didn't do anything. You didn't know it.
We had preliminary testimony from your expert witness. I think it was labeled preliminary. Is that correct?
Correct.
We were under the impression that the time would be used to get either additional testimony before the commission, and it appears that all we have is the letter from yesterday. Is that correct?
Correct. We decided not to file additional testimony. I don't recall making a definite commitment that we would. We wanted to preserve the option to do so.
I recall you go back and look at the tape, please.
Okay.
I think you'll change your mind.
All right, Mr. Shebitz, what's your perspective?
Well, Mr. Chairman, first I want to add my voice to the chorus of folks thanking you and Commissioner Linton for your service. I've been practicing before the commission only since late January, so I'm appearing before you for only the fourth or fifth time, I think. But it's been a privilege. I appreciate your thoughtfulness, and I wish you both the best of luck. I'll second apologize to the commission. I did not realize that we had committed to filing additional testimony. That was not my recollection. Our intent at the time was to continue to review the information that we'd received from the company, to conduct additional discovery, and to review additional information and perform additional analysis based on the additional information that we received. We did conduct additional discovery from Potomac Edison. We reached out to AES, again, to see if, in light of the last hearing, they would be agreeable to participating. The answer, again, was no. So, based on the additional information, we decided not to file additional testimony. And I realize now I probably should have informed the commission that that was our decision. And then we decided to, finally take the position that based on the continuing non-participation of AES and continuing doubts that we have, and I disagree with Mr. Trout that we are saying the plant is definitely going to close. We are saying that we don't know if it's going to close, that there is reason to believe that it might close, and that without the company's participation to assuage those concerns, we don't think it makes sense to approve an agreement that has customers on the line for paying through 2030. So that is our position today, and I can elaborate on any of those points.
I've got some elaborating I need. I'm going to ask you to elaborate specifically on this. Part of the reason we rescheduled this item, we continued this item for 3 additional weeks, is so OPC could get their consultant to finish his incomplete analysis. And there was a commitment, you'll see. I specifically said to OPC, and I'm paraphrasing, so not specifically, but I'm paraphrasing, is 3 weeks enough to finish that analysis? He said, yeah, we believe it is. We'll let you know if it's not. Okay, fair enough. Everybody's hunky-dory. We're going to get complete information because you're trying to stop something based on incomplete information, and we're just supposed to take what you say as a stakeholder, one of many, as gospel, and you think we should stop this because you said so. It doesn't work that way, and you committed to getting the analysis done, so we'd have the ability to make a reasoned and full decision. OPC, the Office of People's Counsel, did not do that, and the notion, the assertion. First of all, there was a lot of bandyment made about we need more time to get this analysis done, and then we gave you more time, and now you say, well, we never committed to getting any further analysis done. That's a little offensive because you're still asking us to deny something that you didn't give us the information you promised us in the first place. And we gave you extra time to do it. We gave you extra time to do your homework, and the dog ate it. Unset. That's Navy talk for something I can't say up here. It's unsatisfactory, and I'm disappointed.
Commissioner, may I respond briefly?
Sure, please.
I just wanted to clarify that we did conduct the additional discovery, and our consultant did perform additional analysis. Based on that analysis, we decided not to file additional testimony. And I apologize I should have clarified that in our letter.
You'll see that your testimony right now is nonsensical compared to the record, the video record that you're on tape. OPC is on tape from the last time we met on this. It doesn't make sense what you're saying, with all due respect.
Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, just following up on Commissioner O'Donnell's line of questioning, it sounds like from the People's Counsel made a decision not to file after your consultant completed their work, or at least continued the work. Maybe not completed it to your satisfaction, but did some more work.
Correct, Commissioner.
And as the record would reflect, there wasn't a update of any kind to the commission that you've made that choice.
Correct.
So in determining that you had the choice after doing the extra work, it does kind of seem like the People's Council at least knew that the commission was expecting an additional filing or additional response or update as a result of providing them more time. So it kind of sounds like Commissioner O'Donnell his recollection is correct, that there was some level of commitment to produce some kind of response during the 21-day period, and the People's Council chose not to do so. Was there something about the consultant's result that discouraged the People's Council from making the filing and updating the testimony?
Commissioner, first of all, I apologize for not following up. Again, I had not recollected that that was our commitment. That was my mistake, and I take responsibility for that. Basically, the consultant decided that there was no cause for additional testimony, and that's why we did not file additional testimony. Again, I should have informed the commission of that fact before this hearing.
So the original testimony that the People's Council presented raised some concern about the viability of the agreement. You know, that there should be some concern for the commission and for other parties. Are you suggesting that after the additional study and investigation that remains the case, or was there something to contradict what he initially testified to?
Our consultant's testimony focused on the financial analysis that Potomac Edison performed to support the amounts in the buyout agreement and the duration of the buyout agreement. We had questions about the analysis that generated those results. We conducted additional discovery to give us additional insights into that analysis, and the commission decided not to raise additional concerns with the analysis.
The commission decided?
I'm sorry, the consultant. Apologies.
So the consultant overruled our request. I'm sorry, Commissioner Lynn, but this is a little upsetting.
It's your line of questions.
Overruled our request and agreement to have information brought to us without even a report before today.
Again, that is my mistake, not the consultant's, for not making clear to the consultant that testimony was definitely expected by the commission.
Well, it sounds like there's, and we're not tag teaming here, but it sounds like there's two different decisions that were made. One, that the consultant concluded that there wasn't anything additional to provide, and so as a result, the People's Council concluded that there was no need to make additional testimony as a filing. So my question was more focused on what the consultant determined. I mean, did he conclude that his original testimony was sufficient, or was the results of his additional study suggesting that his original testimony was incorrect, and so he didn't want to file anything to contradict it?
Commissioner Linton, I don't have the consultant here today to speak to those issues. We're not walking back anything the consultant said in his preliminary testimony. He just did not raise additional concerns that he believed merited further testimony.
Does he still stand by his original testimony, which was in draft form?
It was preliminary rather than draft, but yes, he still stands by it.
And incomplete. You said it was incomplete analysis. You needed more time.
Correct.
He stands by incomplete analysis.
Commissioner O'Donnell, I believe he stands by it's not that piece of the analysis that was done was not completely finished. It's that there were additional pieces that he wanted to analyze and address those further pieces. And based on additional review of those additional pieces, looking at the additional discovery that we conducted, he determined there was no cause to file additional testimony.
So it didn't matter what we thought.
Again, Commissioner, it's my mistake for not informing the consultant that...
No, it's disrespectful. That's what it is. It's disrespectful, in my opinion, with all due respect. Not to me personally, but to the authority and jurisdiction of this commission. And some people want to micromanage the authority and jurisdiction of this commission, and I'll fight it to my dying breath.
Mr. Spivak, has staff's position changed? I'm assuming not, because there's no new pleadings from your office.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. I mean, certainly OPC did raise some interesting points in its letter and its previous testimony, but staff's position has not changed. I will note that the commission is essentially, whichever way the commission decides, I mean, you're acting in an environment of incomplete information, and there's risks in either direction, and they could be costly in either direction. So we do want to be very careful here.
You raise a notable point, Mr. Spivak, the fact that typically when we are asked with answering such a heavy question, we have all the information. Here, there's a lot of uncertainties. There are some certainties and some uncertainties. We heard at the last meeting that AES is investing in this relatively new vintage coal generation station. We also understand in the certainty column that AES Corporate has announced the intent to exit the business by 2025. Mr. Quinn, if the agreement, say, were approved and AES received the $357 million payment in even payments, 78 monthly payments, is that right?
That sounds about right.
There's nothing to stop AES from announcing the day after the check clears that we're shutting down Warrior Run. Is that
correct?
And as of now, can AES tell us with any uncertainty what its designs or plans are with respect to this facility?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian Quinn on behalf of AES. On a lighter note, a sincere me too to what's been said by the Energy Bar behind me. So what we've said is what's in our letter to the Commission, which is they're investigating the future use of the plant. I'd like to say a couple things about that. I think keeping this PPA in place limits the options for the future use of the plant, while approving this buyout expands the flexibility for the future use of the plant. And I hope you understand that and the reasons why. So it's critical what happens here today to determine the future use of the plant. The economics of the plant change completely with this PPA in place versus with it not.
Thank you. Commissioner Barve.
Yeah, I have a question for the Office of the People's Counsel. I'm convinced that AES is not going to participate in discovery, and so perhaps again, it's a newbie question for me, but I'd like to know what further investigation could fruitfully take place in light of the fact that AES doesn't want to participate in discovery. What new information do you anticipate you'll be able to unearth?
Basically, further information about the future operating costs of the plant, including both the operating expenditures and the capital expenditures. We have a reasonable understanding of what the future is going to be, or the forecast is going to be in terms of the money that Potomac Edison pays to AES under the Electric Energy Purchase Agreement. We also have forecasts concerning the PJM revenue that Potomac Edison is going to get from bidding the power and capacity of the plant into the PJM markets.
How would you be able to get useful cost information if AES is not willing to participate?
Commissioner Barve, we can't. That's why we need the company to participate to get this information.
Well, I looked at the hearing from the 31st of May, and I got the distinct impression that they very decisively made a decision not to participate in discovery. Do you have any reason to believe that they would change their mind?
I have none. No, we're convinced that they are not going to change their mind.
Then again, how it sounds to me like I'm an auditor and I'm supposed to audit a warehouse. but the owner of the warehouse has decided to lock the door. And how would I conduct that audit if I can't get inside the warehouse building?
Commissioner Barbe, I don't think it's possible to do that, and that's why we have recommended to the Commission the denial of this petition, that because of the company's refusal to participate, it is impossible for the Commission to get all the information it needs to make an informed decision on Potomac Edison's petition.
So you feel that us denying this would make them change their mind?
Not necessarily, Commissioner. I don't know that it would have that effect at all.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Shebitz, are you concerned at all that if we denied approving this agreement, that the $79 million in professed savings would just go out the window, never to be captured again?
Chairman Stanek, we agree with Mr. Spivak that there are risks both ways. Our concern is that the risks of approving the petition are greater than the risks of not approving it, given the company's commitment or statement of intention to close the plant by 2025 and real questions about the profitability of the plant going forward.
But Mr. Chernick's testimony, and perhaps I should just clarify this, because what we have before us in the record, we have the financial analyst review from Levitan and Associates. We have testimony from John Bittler, Robert Reaping, Mr. Andrew Schlicht, Mr. Chernick, and Ms. Stephanie Fall. Should Mr. Chernick's testimony still be before me today? Or are you withdrawing his testimony?
Commissioner, we think it should still be before the Commission today.
And in his testimony, did he not state that there's a likely benefit to Potomac Edison ratepayers if we approve this settlement? Might not be $79 million as what's being alleged, but perhaps some lesser amount. Isn't that what Mr. Chernick stated?
On the assumption that the plant would continue to operate through 2030, that's correct, Chairman Stanek.
Mr. Shebitz, we don't know if the plant's going to operate 3 years from now, much less 2030. So this is a variable, as Mr. Spivak stated at the outset. We don't have the crystal ball. We don't know what AES Corporate is going to do in a few years now. So there is a question, I think Mr. Trout stated, because PE doesn't have a financial fiduciary interest in here. It's a bird in the hand, I think is how you described it. Or is OPC's position just forget this settlement, let the contract ride, we'll take our chances till 2030, and have PE customers continue to pay this PURPA, federal PURPA surcharge for the next 7 years?
We think the risks are fewer to the customers in that latter situation.
By keeping the PURPA surcharge in place.
Or by denying the contract, the termination agreement in its current form, so that the parties could go back and renegotiate.
We can't obviously compel AES to renegotiate. I would say that after being on the job for a number of years, I've had the opportunity to speak to legislators, elected officials, representatives from Garrett, Allegheny, Washington, Frederick counties, who, when they think of the PSC, also think PURPA and think about the over-market premiums that PE customers have been forced to pay for 23 some odd years now, and it's been substantial. And our Panhandle customers are sad to say not as well off as some other areas of the state. So this is like a double burden that no other ratepayer that I'm aware of has to pay a PURPA surcharge. I'll give you a moment, Mr. Shebitz. You had the alternative proposal, accept the deal, but limit it to 2025. Did you have any discussions with the parties to the settlement on that?
No, Chairman Stanek.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Quinn, did you were you raising your hand?
I was, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, and I appreciate the notice. A couple of things I'd like to say, if it's would be at all helpful at the risk of going on too much. But this termination agreement was arrived at after an arm's length negotiation between sophisticated parties. It took 8 months It's not like Potomac Edison took the first offer. So I have a little issue with that. This was a hard-fought negotiation. As to OPC's comment about budget, there was budget, AES's budget information was provided in discovery through Potomac Edison to OPC in response to a question. Under the agreement, we're required to file our budgets with Potomac Edison every year, and we provided those, or Potomac Edison, I believe, Jeff, you can back me up, provided those to OPC.
Yes, we did.
Finally, there's...
Excuse me, Mr. Quinn, I don't mean to interrupt. I kind of do, but I don't want to interrupt your flow. But was that information provided before or after our last hearing, our first hearing?
After.
Okay, thank you.
And, pardon me, Commissioner.
So it would be part of the information that didn't change Mr. Chernick's mind or cause OPC to put anything else on the table as an objection.
One last point, if I might, Mr. Chairman. To the extent that there's any confusion about whether or not AES can sell this plant under the PPA, they can. OPC's analysis in their letter was a bit shallow, and it doesn't understand there's a difference between an asset sale and a stock sale. So if AES could sell this plant on a stock sale, and it wouldn't trigger the assignment clause. It's outside the context of a non-assignment clause. Maryland law is clear on this. I can give you the site. Other state law is clear on this. It's the general proposition. If the corporation wanted to include, the parties wanted to include language where you couldn't sell the stock of the company, they could have included that in the agreement, and they did not. This is what's called a liberal non-assignment clause that's in this agreement, and to remove all doubt, AES could sell this plant to another and still meet their goal to exit coal by 2025. They could sell this to a third party. And under that option, Mr. Chairman, you're correct. Ratepayers will get zero benefit.
Mr. Quinn, Miss Emile here, who represents the Sierra Club, has interests that are not necessarily aligned with OPC. And I don't see any resolution between the OPC position with the parties at the podium. But Miss Emile, her concern, I suspect you don't like coal plants.
Yeah, we're concerned about the pollution resulting from coal plants.
You want this plant to shut down, is that right?
Yeah, it would be ideal for it to shut down and not be replaced by a similarly polluting plant. Correct.
But your concern is not to sell the power produced by the existing facility through a PERPA contract to PE, is that right?
So that's one of our concerns was the risk that this, the output of the facility would continue being sold through PERPA, which would, but we've resolved some of that concern due to at the last hearing, because the termination agreement does protect against that outcome. The risk is that the power would be sold under PERPA to a different Maryland utility, which is technically permissible, legal, so.
Right. I recall that we addressed that issue.
Yeah.
Mr. Trout, I believe, explained maybe 3 reasons why that wouldn't happen. But the reason I'm asking you now is that in your letter most recently dated 5 days ago, I was reading from the very last sentence of your pleading, which states, in order to mitigate the risk, the commission could condition any approval of the petition on a commitment by AES or any subsequent owner not to sell the power produced by Warrior Run through a PERPA contract with PE. As I understand, this is already taken care of in the contract now?
That's right. Yeah, I believe that the pleading said just to any Maryland utility.
Any Maryland utility.
Yeah.
Would they be able to sell to a utility aside from Potomac Edison?
I think that a request to do that would require the commission's approval.
Okay.
As the original contract did.
Right, just the placement near Cumberland, it could be I guess a virtual wheel. Mr. Quinn, did you have something to add?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so Ms. Emile, are your concerns, Sierra Club's concerns, largely addressed at this point?
Yeah, I mean, essentially our concern is just like due to the lack of information and all the uncertainty that we've been identifying, that the commission is now in a good position to impose guardrails and protect against these two worst possible outcomes that I identified in the pleading,
Okay,
which is
that's what I'm getting at. The guardrails that you seek, I understand, are already in the agreement.
that's not correct. So the two guardrails that we're seeking are just conditioning this approval of the contract on a commitment by AES or a subsequent buyer to cease burning coal at the facility. Ideally by 2025, the data that AES identified as its desire to exit the coal industry.
That's number one.
That's number one. And then
Let's hear a response
yeah,
from AES
I'd love
to number one.
If I understand the statement correctly, Mr. Chairman, it's Sierra Club would like a commitment from AES on the condition the contract's approved, the termination agreement is approved, to stop burning coal at the Warrior Run facility as of what date?
2025, is that right?
That's the date that that AES provided for its commitment to stop burning coal.
So I believe Ms. Emil is saying, will you agree in this contract to honor your publicly stated commitment?
Yeah, and not to confuse things too much, but if the contract goes away, the probability of continuing to burn coal under a PURPA contract needed to be approved by this commission, just from the economic perspective, I think that's in OP's is very, very, very low, from a pricing perspective. So this commitment may be taken care of by market forces, but I think I understand the question.
Okay.
And Alvaro, why don't you?
Please state your name for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Alvaro Valencia, and I am a director at AES's corporate M&A or mergers and acquisitions team. So, exactly, and I think both Mr. Chernick and Commission staff, they made reference to what would happen with the facility if the PURPA contract went away, and they both raised the fact that the plant would probably not be economic to operate in the long term, right? We believe that is the case, and that's why we're looking for, with the termination of the PURPA contract, is to keep on evaluating the feasibility of converting the plant to innovative technologies and could include biomass energy storage, right? And we see there's more value there to keep on running the plant with coal generation. So that optionality, for example, the value of the land, the value of the interconnection, the probability to be able to get, increased tax credits for the energy community adder, for example, for energy storage, we see more value there than in the long term to keep on running the plant with coal. So I'd say our intention, and again, it's an intention, right, to cease coal generation by year end 2025 applies to Warrior Run for sure. And again, it's an intention, it's not a commitment, but we intend to do that, and that applies to this facility as well.
Thank you. Ms. Emil, I find the economics argument compelling because the PURPA contract and the surcharge revenue is what is keeping this, I'm not sure if it's even in the black, but towards the black. What was your second request?
Yeah, so the second concern was the one I was identifying a bit earlier, just the risk that a new PURPA contract could be formed with a buyer other than Potomac Edison. That was something went back and read the termination agreement, and it does provide that Potomac Edison would no longer be required to enter a PURPA contract, but just says nothing about any other Maryland utilities. So that was the second concern we had.
Mr. Quinn, do you want to respond to that? Is that accounted for in this agreement or not? Or would you have any concern with a potential sale to a future buyer tying their hands to seek a PURPA arrangement?
Regarding a sale to another utility in the state of Maryland, that's not covered by the termination agreement between ourselves and Potomac Edison, obviously. Again, I'll stand on my answer previously in Mr. Alvaro's testimony, which was the economics of such a transaction are, and to then come before this commission and obtain approval for that, the economics of this facility without this guaranteed revenue stream for the next 7 years in place look dramatically different. And if you want to condition an order on something like that, I mean, that's the commission's authority to do that, but just from the chances of that happening, I can't envision.
I think the chances are nil, and I haven't been keeping an eye on the FERC dockets lately in terms of, because this would have to come before FERC in order to bless
Correct.
another PURPA contract deal. That would also be an opportunity, a docket for this commission, elected leaders, the utilities to intervene in a FERC case, and Sierra Club as well, and oppose that deal. I do agree with you, Mr. Quinn, that the economics would not favor even some type of successor. If AES sells this to another buyer, I can't see them pursuing a PURPA contract in light of the history that we've experienced in 23 years. Commissioner Linden.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm not sure if we could grant that type of condition in advance of the request from whatever buying party it might be, without that kind of proposal or presentation in front of us. So we'd effectively be telling a company no before they even made the filing. In a filing, I guess we would be issuing that order at some point today or at some point in the near future, but yeah, I'm not sure we would even have the authority to do that. We'd have to have the request in front of us first. I mean, does any of the council disagree with that?
Commissioner Linton, I think the commission's ability to issue what amounts to an advisory opinion is very limited, or even I've sometimes heard it said non-existent. And your point is very well taken that you cannot rule today on a petition, the contents, timing and contents of which you have not seen.
It hasn't been filed yet.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
And we don't know if they're going to sell. So there's a lot of variables there, Miss Emile. But to the extent there is a formation of a new PURPA contract at some point in the future, that will be an open docket at FERC that all of us will have the opportunity to proceed.
And I believe ultimately this commission would have the ability to determine what avoided cost would be, and certainly at this point, the commission's opinion on that, as far as I know, is that it would be the PJM market rates.
Thank you. I don't want to diminish People's Council's concern. You have legitimate concerns here. This is not an environment with all the information before the commission. And making decisions in furtherance of the public interest is not always an easy task. But I am persuaded by what documentation we do have before us that this buyout and termination contract is in the public interest. I have no degree of confidence that it'll be $79 million less over the next 7 years than what customers would have otherwise paid, but I'm fairly confident that Potomac Edison ratepayers will see some benefit by getting out from under this very burdensome, very expensive contract, of which they'll continue to pay $4.5 million per month until sometime in 2030, December of 2030.
December of 2029, Your Honor.
December 2029. Thank you, Mr. Trout. Commissioner Murray.
Yeah, thank you. I also heard from my colleagues in Western Maryland, Democrat and Republican, about their dislike for this contract, and so this contract has managed to create bipartisanship in Western Maryland. This is a very murky situation, obviously, but I still don't see what would be gained by hearing if AES continues to not participate in discovery, and which they're not legally required to do, in my understanding. I just don't understand what could be gained, and on balance, it's beginning to look to me that this agreement is probably something we should approve.
Any additional commentary before I call a motion?
Well, I would agree, Mr. Chairman. I think the concept of the energy transition, it's going to be unwinding a number of scenarios like this. You know, and I've said before that regulation drafting is like sausage making. I mean, this is a great big kielbasa sausage. It's going to have a lot of ingredients in it that we probably haven't had to deal with in a long time. So we may not have every answer when we have to make a decision, unfortunately.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Mr. Chairman, when we first had this and before putting it on continuance, I too thought that the Office of People's Counsel was maybe potentially had some very valid points, and I wanted to give them every opportunity to develop the arguments they were making then. I think we did that in good faith, and I think I was heading in their direction, subject to check of the completed analysis, which should have been done, or at least some additional information analysis. But in the absence of some additional evidence from the last time, simply a delay of 3 weeks for the sake of what appears to be a sake of delay, but no redeeming quality information for the public interest. I've done a 180 here this morning, and I'll be voting yes too.
I would move that the Commission approve the agreement dated March 23rd, 2023 between the Potomac Edison Company and AES Warrior Run Limited Partnership for termination of electric energy purchase agreement and associated agreements as filed by the Commission on April 17th, 2023. The vote begins with Commissioner Barbe.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
And Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion has been approved. Let me just say it's been a pleasure over the past 5 years. We're adjourned.